Hey guys, so now let's go with the ear gauge sizes. Now, typically when you're pierced at any sort of place to get your first earring set, you start at an 18 gauge. That's typical for most places that do jewelry piercings or whatever for your ears. It's going to happen at 18 gauge, and usually that occurs at a mall. With piercing guns are usually this size, or they are that size. Now, the jump from 18 gauge to, say, a 5 gauge is millimeters, obviously, but it's a very tough jump to go from there to a 5 or an 8. But let's go read the millimeters. It's 4.6 millimeters diameter at a 5 gauge. Or let's see, let's go back to it. 5, okay, 0.182 of an inch at the 5 gauge. So when you pierced at an 18 gauge, that's 0.05 or 0.040 of an inch, or equals 1.02 millimeters diameter. So it's pretty small. Now, jumping from that to a 5 is difficult. So you want to get a taper that basically brings you from an 18 to, I would say, nearly a 10 or a 9 gauge. So from 18 to a 10 or a 9 would be typical for your first jump. A taper that goes up to that, about that size, but you can go from that 18 to a 5 in one taper. And it's not a terrible jump. Not for me. It was difficult for other people that I know and other people that I've had the pleasure of knowing that had their ears pierced at, malls. But we're going to go from that to the other question that a lot of people get stuck on. What's the real mystery with gauges? So at the zeros. Now, I know this is confusing for a lot of folks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clear the air up here really quickly for the zero sizes or zero gauges. So your first zero is a single zero gauge. Okay, that is 0.3249 inch of an inch, I should say. So it's 0.3249. That's the inch calculation. It is 8.2525 millimeters diameter. So that's a zero gauge. Now, the next gauge from a zero is a double zero, which is currently what my ears are at, if you can see them. I don't know if you can see the gauge there, but it's a double zero. Okay. And the double zero is a 9.266 millimeters diameter. Let's see. The next jump is a triple zero, or a 10.4 millimeter diameter gauge piercing. So that would be stretched piercing. So it goes from 1 0, so you're at a single zero, to the next step, which is a double zero. Then from a double zero to a triple zero. Then from a triple to an odd number, which confuses a lot of folks, from 000 to a 7/16. That's 7/16 inch in diameter, or 0.4375 of an inch, is also equal or synonymous with a 11.11 millimeter diameter. So that's usually where people stop, at a 7/16. Excuse me, where most of the people stop anyway. But you can, if you are able to find a 000 gauge piercing, then you can go from a 000 to a quadruple zero, which is 11.68 of a millimeter in diameter. Well, 11.68 millimeters in diameter. The quadruple zero is the last zero gauge on this chart. Then after that is the half inch. So there are literally no more zeros in the gauge chart after that. So the confusion stops here. So I ran into this issue a lot when I was working at Spencer's, or while working at Spencer's with the piercings. I still have a job there. So the piercing section at Spencer's does not carry a 000 gauge, to my knowledge, but the confusion was set in what comes first, the single zero or the double zero. Well, The single zero comes first, the double zero is second, triple zero is third, and the 7/16 inch diameter piercing or stretch piercing is the fourth, and the technical fourth zero, or fourth zero gauge would be a quadruple zero, but it actually takes place in the fifth section of the stretched jewelry diagram or list here. So that will be quadruple zero at 11.68 millimeters diameter at quadruple. So after that's your half inch. And then after your half inch, your 9/16, and then 5/8, and 11/16, 3/4, 3/16, 7/8, and 5/16, then 1 inch finally at 25.4 millimeters diameter, which is where I plan to stop, is at a single inch. So that's pretty big. I don't know if any of you have had the chance to see a single inch jewelry or a single inch piercing, 1 inch diameter piercing or plug, stud, or whatever you choose to call it. The stretched piercing at 1 inch is quite large, and that's big enough for most people. A lot of us want to stop at the double zero, which is, let's see, right about midway, I would say, between that and an inch. Pretty close to midway, because the half is not that much further down the line than the full inch, but it's still quite a ways from a full half. So it's still not nearly large enough, I would say, to meet the halfway mark between that and an inch, but it's close. So that one, I wanted to clear that up. It's single zero, which is your first zero, double zero, which is second, triple zero is your third, 7/16 is your fourth, and quadruple zero, technical fourth, and technical fifth. Or on this list chart here, it's the fifth gauge. So, or the fifth zero or fourth zero gauge, but on this chart, it's the fifth one. So that would give you your information there to clear that information up. And the very last gauge here on this chart is a 2 inch diameter, which is absolutely inordinately huge. I wouldn't go that far, but there are some folks who do go 2 inches. But I think 1 inch is a comfortable stopping point for most. At least for me, it's a good stopping point. So what I wanted to clear up was the zero confusion with gauges. And that pretty much sums it up. So if you're looking to do some stretching with your ears and you want to go to about that size, I do recommend the the ear stretching oils. Jojoba is a good one, a good brand to use also. But the oil that helped me out a lot when I was stretching that I would recommend using is what you call it? I forgot what they call it. It's well, anyway, the oil I attempted to use but never really got around to using it was a piercing oil that they offered, or a stretching oil they offered at Ink Wizard back east. But since moving to California, I've been using apricot oil to help my ears heal, and it's been working quite well to keep things in a loose form so I can stretch if I want to and it not hurt my ears terribly, to the point where I have to deal with excruciating pain. So typically, when you get to a double zero, that's pretty much where the pain ends if you know how to stretch your ears, because double zero's pretty large at that point. You can stretch your ears out to a half inch or an inch with ease if you step it up gradually. So going from a double zero to a half inch is not recommended. That's a pretty big jump. But going from a double zero, skipping the triple, going straight to the 7/16 is okay. You can do that because it's not that much of a jump. Okay, it's so the difference between the triple zero and a 7/16 is literally, let's see, barely 3/100ths of an inch, barely 3/100ths. So it's not a very big jump at all. But skipping over the triple zeros is fine. So if you want to do that, going straight from a double zero to a 7/16 is not a problem. That's typical for most people. And it's very typical here in America to go from a double zero to a 7/16, or what people often referred to as the double-aught to 7/16, or you can go straight to the quadruple zero or the quat-aught if you want. That pretty much clears it up. So to sum it up there, your first gauge is 0, second is double, third is triple, and fourth gauge in the 0 section is 7/16, and the fifth gauge is a quadruple 0. But you can ignore the 7/16 if you were able to find a quadruple 0 gauge. I would say you can jump from a 3 or a triple 0 to a quadruple 0, no problem, because that's also, let's see, about 3/100ths of an inch difference in that one there too. So it's not really a big jump, but it's going to feel like it. On the first day, it's going to hurt a little bit. So I recommend using apricot oil or any kind of oil. Jojoba is good. Any kind of not baby oil, because baby oil is not good. Okay, baby oil doesn't make you stretch. It's mineral oil. It's very painful, and it can lead to certain things being infected if you're susceptible to scented oils. But I would use just anything from essential oils, jojoba oil, or just using apricot oil. It's still fine. You're gonna be able to stretch it quite easily. But that covers it for this video for the gauges to stretch your ears. So I do recommend at least going to a place where they do this professionally, like the mall is probably an okay place to go, but a place that does piercings on the regular, like a tattoo shop, or a place that does any work with needles or piercing, just piercings in general, is a very good place to go, because if they're professionals and they have it posted on their glass, they're professionals. When you go inside, you see all the gear, you'll know. So just saying. And that's pretty much it there for the gauges. So I wanted to end it here, and I want to thank you folks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I do appreciate it. This has been Rayne. Have a good one.